It is finally almost upon us. The 2020 CPL season, the Island Games are starting in 7 days, 1 week from today, and as such, I am making my predictions. This season of the CPL is going to be a much higher quality one than we had last year. I feel like every team has made significant improvements to their lineup. There has been a large influx of former Canadian national team members who are playing abroad coming back to Canada to play in the CPL. And so the overall quality of talent on each team has increased. And also with this shortened 7-game regular season round-robin schedule in the first round, things are going to be crazy as every game is going to mean so much. So all in all, we are set for what should be a fantastic season/tournament. I still haven't decided what to call this, but regardless of whether you consider it a season or a tournament, it should be excellent and it should be incredibly tightly contested. So to start things off, here's my predictions for the first round. Okay, so in the first round, I have the 4 teams moving on: Hamilton, Calgary, York, Winnipeg. And then the 4 teams getting eliminated: Pacific, Halifax, Edmonton, Ottawa. Going down the list, Hamilton Forge, champions last year. Yes, in the regular season they weren't as good as Cavalry, but I feel like in the off season, well, they have lost important pieces like Tristan Borges and Giuliano Ferrano. They have added some very good players. Paulo Sabac is a direct replacement, if not better than Borges, and Mo Babouli adds the striking talent that I think they were lacking for all of last season. They were very strong in the attacking midfield, but they didn't really have the strikers to finish it off, and I think Mo Babouli, if he can figure things out and play like he did in League One Ontario and like he did in, I know it's not even really professional, but the Canadian Soccer League, then he has an opportunity to make a huge impact for the Forge. Second, Calgary. They lost a couple pieces, didn't have the same level of additions as the Forge did, but they're still a very solid team, and they still have a large proportion of the group of players that they had last year coming back. And I think that's going to be a key, especially in how short this tournament is going to be, or how short the season is going to be, is that having players who know the system, who've played under the coach before, have played as a team before, are going to be incredibly useful to have, especially in the first couple of games. That's where I think teams like Halifax, who basically completely overhauled their entire roster, might struggle, is they're going to have 7 games and you have to immediately figure out how to play together as a team, whereas Hamilton and Calgary especially have kept a large proportion of their roster from last season around, so they're going to know how to play as a team already and already know how everyone else on the squad kind of operates. York 9 is the winners of the offseason in the CPL this year, in my opinion. Some huge additions, brought back Ryan Telfer, added Michael Petrasso, just adding some quality players, very visibly got better. They honestly have a shot at winning this tournament, so they are for sure getting into the top 4. Winnipeg Valor, they lost 2 key pieces in Dylan Sacramento and Michael Petrasso, but they have added some very key pieces. Brett Levis, don't really know how to pronounce his name. Fraser Aird, former Canadian men's national team players who have played at high levels in MLS or overseas. James Pantemis gives them probably the second best goalie in the league behind Marco Carducci, and also probably the goalie with the most upside in the league in that case. And depending on how they all mesh together, they could make some noise in this tournament. Pacific FC, I have coming 5th, just not making it. They held on to Taron Campbell, who is going to be even better this year if his natural progression continues. Having Marcel Dion the entire tournament is going to help. And they added Marco Bustos, another major loss from Valor, who is going to be a huge addition for Pacific. They honestly definitely have a solid shot at finishing top 4 and moving on to the second round. Honestly, with Winnipeg and Pacific, it could go either way. These two could flip-flop. I think this is going to be the most highly contested battle in the CPL for getting into the top 4. Halifax Wanderers very much rehauled basically their entire roster, made a lot of additions. No huge splashes like York 9, Hamilton, Winnipeg, Pacific all made, but they definitely do have a better roster than they did last year. Alex Marshall has some potential to make some noise for them, but overall I don't think the quality of their additions were as good as the other teams that are above them in my predictions, so I don't see them making the Final Four. FC Edmonton, similar boat as Halifax, a lot of additions, very much a rehauled roster, but again, just not the splashes made that any of the other teams really had. I'm going to put them in the same boat of Halifax as better than last year, but also everyone's better than last year pretty much. So the moves they made in the offseason just aren't enough to push them into the top four. And last, I have Atletico Ottawa. That's still a difficult decision to make right now because Ottawa's full roster isn't solidified, but with international players not having time to come in, so we're down to who's left nationally. I just don't see Ottawa making the necessary additions required to be a major contender in this tournament, especially considering that a lot of good former Fury players ended up going to other teams, Tissot going to Hamilton, Dixon going to Pacific. Just players who, had they stayed in Ottawa, would have made a major impact in the CPL with Atletico, just are on other teams right now. So I think Ottawa is getting double hit off of being an expansion team and then being an expansion team in a season that we weren't sure was going to happen, so they just weren't able to get the signings required to be competitive in this season. So Ottawa, unfortunately, I don't see any way that they're going to make the top four. So that's what I think the top four is going to be. Moving on to the second round. Hamilton and York moving on to the finals. Calgary and Winnipeg not making it. Only one change, York for Calgary. I think that the talent York added in the offseason is immense. The only reason why I don't have them coming above Calgary in the first round is the we've played together before factor that Calgary has. Calgary is just a bit more meshed, a bit more we've been good more recently and we've been good before. So I think at the beginning of the season, York might have a slight stumble out of the gate, whereas Calgary might just come flying out. But I think with 7 games under their belt, York is a better team on paper at least this year than Calgary, so I see them moving on to the finals. And then Hamilton, Winnipeg, same thing I said in the first round. Winnipeg's better, not as good as those three. Hamilton, the additions they made this season, they're looking quite good, so I don't see them not making the finals. Which means the 2020 CPL Championship game will be the 9:05 derby, Hamilton Forge versus York 9. And the final score I have for the final, Hamilton Forge 2, York 9 1. This isn't a bias, I swear. Watch my other predictions videos. If I don't think a team that I like has a shot, I don't put them going far. Hamilton Forge is so good this season, at least on paper. They were very good last season, and this season they look slightly better. York 9 looks a lot better than they did last season, but last season they also were nothing compared to what Forge and Calgary were. So I have Hamilton winning back-to-back CPL championships and continuing their reign on the CPL at least for one more year. So those are my predictions. Let me know what you think about them down below in the comments. And as always, if you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.